Hello, everybody. All right, so we are actually in, like, I can't believe it. We are in, like, I would call the home stretch of the book. Tonight we are discussing chapters 14 through 16, as it says up here. And then next week will be our last group meeting. So we are very much in the home stretch, and very thankful for you guys to have, stuck with us this far. So let me get into the voice chat, and it looks like we've got a rousing party, so let's get it started. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Alrighty. So, all right. So this week, as I just introduced to the viewers at home, we read chapters 14 through 16, and we are obviously very nearing the end of our Hobbit journey, and next week will be our last group meeting for the Hobbit, which is insane. And I know that Jay and I have talked about this, but this week's chapters flew by. Like, they were very quick reads, I felt like, in comparison to, like, some of our previous week's reading, which was kind of nice. That, like, the whole like Bilbo taking the Arkenstone was, like, very, let's see, it was, the chapter itself was 1 2 3 4 5.5 pages if we count the front and back of each page. Like that whole escapade was 5.5 pages, and that was a chapter. And like it was just like a really nice pace. And I've already declared that my stream title for next week is going to be "Why Did This Need 3 Movies?" question mark. Anywho, okay, so taking it back to chapter 14. Anybody else have any like overarching thoughts about these chapters before we get into chapter 14 specifically? Excellent. Good talk, everybody. Okay. Chapter 14. That was beautiful discussion. Everybody's muted if you didn't know that. Which I don't think I did. I don't think I did that. Is everybody alive? Is everybody alive?
Oh yeah,
I'm here.
Okay, good.
we have dogs that are barking and whatnot.
Excellent. Okay, chapter 14. Okay. Let's see. I love how this chapter, because we talked about this at the end of last week, where the end of 13, like we 13 in general, we completely glossed over, you know, Smaug attacking Lake Town and all that jazz. So it's like, I love that literally wham, right at the front of chapter 14. Now, if you wish, like the dwarves, to hear news of Smaug, you must go back again to the evening when he smashed the door and flew off in rage 2 days before. So it's like, okay, so 2 days has passed. Got it. And now, I felt like in all 3 of these chapters, honestly, Tolkien did a great job of like reminding you whose perspective he was telling that chapter from, which I really appreciated. Because like here we are, it's like, okay, we're in Lake Town. That's who we're talking about. That's where we are. Cool. And I don't know, it was just like it was like really nice to not have all the extra clutter in this whole like scene, like the movie, which I know we've hashed out every week till we're blue in the face, that obviously the movies were designed to be more showy, more action packed, just like the original trilogy, because money. So we know that, but it was just like nice to not have like, you know, Bard's family gallivanting through the city, and like it was nice to not have like the Tariel and Legolas escapades, and it was just like really nice that it was very simple. And like it was just like it was just like good. Like I just really liked how like clean, I guess you could say, this chapter was.
Yeah, I thought it did a good job at setting the scene for you so that you could imagine it without being uber descriptive of every little bit. I think it did do a good amount of, you know, describing it, but not going into tedious detail. I thought it was the right level of especially kind of for the audience for this, right? I thought it was the right amount of detail for that attack.
Agreed. And because like I didn't really feel lost in this chapter. Like I wasn't like, wait, what's happening? So I agree, Mork, that it's like he described it well, but it was not so like bogged down in detail, because we have seen a couple of English. We have seen that throughout the book a couple times where it gets so intricate on the detail that you're like, holy smokes, you know, that was thick, you know. So it's kind of nice that it was very just to the point, but it was still descriptive enough that you could see the scene.
Tolkien knew what we were here for. He knew we wanted to see this dragon get killed.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I did like in this chapter and in general that they made the master, like in the movies, they very much depicted the master as this guy that you were like, man, this, you know, like, gosh, you know, you just hate the man kind of thing. And he kind of does the same. Like, you know, he's like running away. He's, you know, like, I don't know. It's just, I just see his name sparked into my mind of that. But, like, you just kind of loathe the man. And then later when they're talking about making Bard, I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, when they make Bard the king, you know, or they're talking about making Bard the king, like, the master just has to step in, and you're just like, shut up, dude. Go away. Like, nobody likes you. Depart. And then, like, I loved, because, like, it was the thrush, right, that told Bard about the weak spot, right? If I remember that correctly.
Yeah, he like is talking in Thrush though, but somehow Bard can understand him.
Ah, right.
I believe that was because he's one of the surviving members of Dale, and they were able to speak to them.
Ooh,
Right.
okay. Yeah, so he was a descendant in long line of, I'm probably gonna butcher the pronunciation, Girion, Lord of Dale, whose wife and child had escaped down the running river from the ruin long ago. Yeah, but it was this, like, let's see, where is it? You know, he's saying, oh yeah, like, yeah, here it is. Literally the next paragraphs is like, you know, the moon is rising, look for the hollow of the left breast as he flies and turns above you. And everything. And then, like, this part, like, this paragraph, I remember in the original, like, 1977 adaptation of this, the animated one, this line where, like, he's like, Black Arrow, I have saved you to the last. You have never failed me, and always I have recovered you. I had you from my father, and he from of old. If ever you came from the forges of the true king under the mountain, go now and speed well. And it's just like, whoo, like, man, like, good line. Well, a couple lines, but, you know,
It was a great line.
yeah. And I just remember in the animated one where he's like, go now and speed well. And you're just like, oh, yes. Like, I am rooting for this inanimate object. Yes. Oh, there goes my bookmark. Anyways, so.
They also don't, in the book, they don't, like, spend, like, in the movie, there's, like, a good 30 minutes where everyone, like, explaining the Black Arrow.
Yes.
And here Tolkien's just like, yep, this is a Black Arrow. It's a good arrow.
Yep. And there wasn't all the stuff where, like, his son became the support for the arrow, and his son brought him the arrow that was hidden in a rowboat, and it was, you know, he made this bow by sticking the arms of the bow into the side of the it was just like, what? Like, just shoot the darn thing.
Convoluted.
Yeah, and again, we go back to the same thing of, you know, wanted to make it as epic as possible, but here we are. And let's see. Yeah, I feel like this almost has a little bit of a vibe. I mean, again, I haven't read it yet, but, like, based on the movies, this gives me a little bit of, like, Éowyn with the Witch King vibes, where it's like David versus Goliath. Like, you never would have seen this coming, of, like, this human man shoots an arrow at a freaking dragon. And
well,
yeah,
if I may,
Yeah.
part of that is that Tolkien, being a scholar of, like, ancient literature and like stories, he understands what you want is you want the normal man to be the hero, and so he does. Yeah, he's descended from a king, but he's still just an archer. He's not anything more intense than that. He takes this arrow and kills the dragon, like Saint George, the patron saint of England, slew a dragon. All of these things are just common, I dare say, tropes, but at the time they weren't. Freaking people didn't. There was only a few people out there writing like this.
That's a good point. That very much, like, you know, relatable, like, wait, that could be me. Like, I'm an ordinary person. Like, you're telling me that I could slay a dragon? What? And then, or
yeah, especially since he's telling it to his children.
Sure. And
like, yeah, like, just by being brave and being steadfast, you too can deal damage to this gigantic monster.
And gives a little bit of like an underdog vibe too. Which of course is a
Also,
common theme that everybody loves.
If I can say, the death of Smaug is by far one of the worst things in the Peter Jackson movies. The convoluted turning your son into a ballista
Yep.
thing is just kind of ridiculous. It's like, if you're looking for that much pressure, the boy's arms would have ripped off.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like it's just that's not how that works, buddy.
Yep. Agreed. It just, yeah. And like that's what I said at the beginning, Tim, was where it was like these chapters were just enough of detail that you got the picture across, but you could still see it, but it didn't have all the extra bleh.
Yeah, in this chapter especially, it feels like there was an economy of words that Tolkien was really being. He was being stingy with. Is like, look, I don't need to tell you 1,000 words where 100 will suffice.
Yeah. Agreed. Let's see.
I think too, to that point that Tim's making about the economy of words, like this is the chapter that the Hobbit's not in the book called The Hobbit. Like it feels very like, hey, you need to know this because other stuff's going to happen that involves the Hobbit. So here's what happened. All right, let's get back to the main thing.
Exactly. It wraps up this part of the story without taking too much time away from, hey, you know that story about Bilbo? Well, this is his story, so get back to that.
I didn't think of it that way. That's awesome. Like I didn't think of it that's a good way to think about it. Because you're right, like we needed to finish this story arc, so to speak, or this story path or whatever. Because obviously the dragon's been a big deal, so we needed to wrap it up. But at the same time, like you said, it's like this is called The Hobbit. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, and then it's like they're talking about, you know, the people are asking where is Bard. They want to make him king. Of course, the what's his name hates it. And the master. There we go. That's the name I'm looking for. Yeah, like let's see. Nothing really. Yeah, it's like Bard's trying to get things organized now that there was obviously a lot of destruction with the attack and everything. So then did I know that, like, was it birds that went out from seeing Smaug die that then went to, like, the elves and everything? Is that how, what's his name, got here? Who told him? Is it one of the birds?
It was a raven, wasn't it? Or there was a thrush that was talking to one of them, and didn't they say like I can't talk to a thrush, but I can speak to a raven? And they brought an old raven bird probably back from the days of old. And,
yeah,
he's the one that told them.
Yeah, that's like right off at the beginning of like the next chapter, I think.
I think that one, yeah, that was for the dwarves because the dwarves like the raven.
Yeah.
But I think for the Elven King, they don't specify.
But he just hears about it.
Yeah, essentially they imply that he hears about it from the birds because they can now go in this area they couldn't before, so they're not telling each other about it. But then they also say that messengers from Lake Town asking for help.
Oh, that's right, because he does say, Bard does tell him to go out and like somewhere in here, but yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, the Elven King had received news from his own messengers and from the birds that loved his folk and already knew much of what had happened. Yep, desolation of the dragon, Smaug is dead. Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like he's ready to start marching north to the mountain. Yeah, and it's like it was thus that in 11 days from the ruin of the town, the head of their host passed the rock gates at the end of the lake and came into the desolate lands. So we're already talking like 2+ weeks after Smaug dies before like the next chapter starts. Ish.
Another big difference in the movies to the book I noticed was that they make Thranduil, the Elven King, more gracious, I guess, and good towards just everything. Like in the movie, yeah, he brings help for the people of Vale and Lake Town, but he doesn't. It just seems like he's like, yeah, I'm doing this, but I'm really here for the gold. Whereas in the book, it really feels like he's going out of his way to help somebody.
Yeah, I definitely did get. Oh, yeah, I agree. Because in the movie, I that's a really good point. Is that in the movie he definitely feels like it's kind of like, yeah, I'm doing this good gesture, but in actuality, I'm here for this. Like, you know. So that's a.
Yeah, in the movies, that seems like the white gems is all he cared about, but in the book, it was more like, let's get through this.
Yeah.
Well, in the movie, it's implying that those are Silmarils, and it's kind of trying to tie it into that, and it's kind of ridiculous to do so since I believe that they were destroyed. but it's been a minute since I've actually looked back into that.
I know we'll get
But
there.
those are,
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, but those are really important to the elves for reasons. Although he's a Sindarin elf, so I don't quite understand why he'd be busting after high elven artifacts. But I mean, that's neither here nor there.
Let's go ask him. Can we go ask him?
Oh, I'm just saying, the Noldor and the Sindar are two different things. Well, kind of being the same.
If Sod was here, you would just be like, what a bunch of nerds. I know I'm skipping ahead a couple pages.
I've never denied my nerdity.
Oh, I don't think any of us have, especially not in this group. I know we'll talk about the Raven stuff here in a second, but to the point about the gems and everything, I did have a question about that in this next part when the dwarves are singing. There's this line. Hold on, where is it? Oh, here it is. Like there was this part here. It's like the 4th verse of the song that they sing. On silver necklaces they strung, the lights of stars on crowns they hung, the dragon fire from twisted wire, the melody of harps they rung. Is that first part about those gems? Because like I remember, what's his name, Thranduil, or however you pronounce his name, I always forget it. He mentions Thranduil. It's like so many extra syllables. He mentions in the movie. I know. He wants to sound bougie, but in the movie, he talks about them being like of stars, right, and everything. So, is that this, or is that just in general, just gems in general that they're referring to?
It's gems in general. Okay. Although he's referring specifically to, I believe he is alluding to it in the movie that they're Silmarils.
Okay. I didn't know if in this verse of that song that they were referencing those specifically or anything. So I was just like, well, we're on the topic of this. Let me ask that now. Okay.
No. It's just because like gems are considered to be amazingly beautiful, especially when cut by master gemsmiths like the dwarves and are master gem cutters. So and their propensity for making beautiful things. So that's all that's referencing.
Oh, okay. So nothing special then, other than the obvious. Okay. So I actually I actually really liked this whole part here with like this super old raven and everything. I thought it was really cool, the concept of like this like grandpa raven. And yeah, Raven, you're a grandpa in the book.
I was waiting for someone to make that comment.
I did it. I done did it. But it's like, where's the description here? Before long, there was a fluttering of wings, and back came the thrush, and with him came a most decrepit old bird. He was getting blind, he could hardly fly, and the top of his head was bald. Raven, are you sure you're not in this book?
I might be.
He was an aged raven of great size. He alighted stiffly on the ground before them, slowly flapped his wings, and bobbed towards Thorin. And then it's like, it's like he's talking, which I think was also really cool because he was speaking. I think Bilbo makes a comment. Yeah, and Bilbo could understand what he said, for he used ordinary language and not bird speech. I thought that was also interesting, where it's like the thrush, who we learned earlier, was an old bird, but it's like, here is this apparently like ancient raven that is speaking to them in English, or, what we think of as English, obviously. Excuse me. And, is describing how he was, he's 100 and is the age, like, it reads, it is 100 years and 3 and 50. Is that 53? Like 153? 3 and 50?
I do believe so.
Okay. So it's like that's a hard English sentence. He is an 153-year-old, but that was a terrible sentence. 153-year-old bird. So it's like he's freaking ancient. And like he's chief of the ravens, like, and he's talking, and it's just interesting because he's like, I remember hearing stories about you, Thorin, and your father, and all. It's like, whoa, and it's like, there's almost like a joy in this next sentence where he's like, behold, the birds are gathering back again to the mountain and to dale from south, east and west, for word has gone out that Smaug is dead. And it was like, there's like such a joy in that of like, and then I think later in this chapter too, they mention how like there's other, like I think it's other birds and stuff coming back and everything. So it's like this once desolate land is now full of life, and it's full of life in a very basic sense. Obviously it's not like, everything just came back to life instantly, but it's like, there's already signs of like a new beginning and new creatures and creatures returning and stuff, which I was just like, oh, that's so like joyous. Let's see. Yeah, it's like they're talking about the treasure and saying like, it's all yours. And then it's like the raven is giving him advice, and he's saying how like, he's saying like Bard is somebody you should talk to. Yeah, and it's.
I was actually impressed by that part. I'd completely forgotten about that part where the raven actually like gives him counsel. He's like, I'm old. I've seen things. This is my perspective on what's going to happen. This is who you should trust. Like, I was actually impressed by that.
Yeah. Especially when we think of birds nowadays as like, they're birds. So the fact that you're getting advice and counsel from a bird is a little strange. But like you said, it's like he's very old. He's seen things. He's been around the block a time or two.
And birds are also historically thought of as symbols of wisdom.
True.
Particularly like ravens. Sorry.
Also, we know Tolkien loves birds and horses. So.
I was about to make that point as well. We established that last week. But hey.
Avid pony hater.
Yeah. But we did learn, I think, in this chapter that, 3 of the ponies survived? So, not complete pony death. So, let's see. And I did like, similar to what I said earlier of like, there was enough description that it was, clear what we were doing and what was going on, but it wasn't so wordy that you're like, oh my gosh. But it's like, he literally says like it's like a paragraph of like, okay, they explored, They went and saw the main door, the front gate. All other gates had been shut. You know, this was found. This was found. It's like, okay, cool. We explored. It's like, well, that was nice because in the movie it was like, let's explore everything. Let's walk all over the place. Let's talk about it. And everything. And it's just like, you know, 4 days pass.
It does make sure you know like the exact timeline for things, which I thought was really helpful.
Yeah. Especially because I feel like in books, because you have to visualize everything, unless the author tells you that time has transpired, or there is a reference to like a change in season, which obviously would be the author letting you know time has passed. It's like, logically, when you read, you're like, well, this has happened chronologically, and it's probably happening like back to back to back. Whereas, like, that's, especially as we've seen recently, that is far from the case. Like, you know, time has passed. We're already probably 2.5 weeks since Smaug died, you know, at this point, because we were at 11 days. Now we're at, okay, we're at like 2 weeks and a day, but you know, give or take, it's like we're pushing 2.5 weeks now. But we wouldn't know that other than like, okay, we can kind of insinuate that, you know, with them searching the whole place, time has passed. There's no way they can get that done in a day, but still, it's like, you know,
I like how he was very descriptive on the point where once Thorn started walking around, it was like his memory came back. Like he had not left. He had been there his whole life. He knew where to go. He knew where everything was, and he was showing everyone the entire place. It was pretty. I like that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we can all, I think, relate to that in some way. There's some location in our lives, whether it be a house, whether it be a building, whether it be, you know, whatever. Like, I feel like all of us can definitely relate to that, where even if you've been gone from that location for years, you can still go back to it and be like, I know exactly where every room is, and like, I can tell you where it is, you know, with my eyes closed.
It felt like he actually had a small moment, even though it wasn't over yet. They still had another fight to fight. He had a brief moment where all that kind of went away, and he was just going through this moment where he had some small little bit of peace before having to jump back into the frying pan.
He already jumped into the frying pan. That was an earlier chapter, but.
That's true. That's true.
I knew you were going to get me for that. I knew it.
Yeah, and similarly to that point of like the peace a little bit is that like, you know, they, you know, kind of have this like couple chunks of paragraphs and stuff when they're singing and everything, where it's like, yeah, they're just kind of like enjoying the fact that they're in you know, they're in the halls under the mountain, and they're here, and you know, like they found the instruments in the hoard and everything, and it's like they just, you know, Bilbo says that it's like what they sang when they first met him and stuff like that.
I do wonder what the significance was of Tolkien highlighting that only like 3 of the dwarves weren't really into the whole let's make this our standing area, let's not let anybody in kind of thing, because like I think it was Philly, Killy, and Bomber, or like, yeah, let's go party, and everybody else is like, we're gonna stay inside.
Oh, let me see.
Can't remember where that is. I'm looking for it right
now. Let's see. Yeah, I'm looking for. I must have like either that part did not commit into my brain when I read it, or
I should have marked it down. That's all right.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come across it and be like, there it is. Yeah, the whole the whole standoff at the gate kind of thing. I felt like this, I guess you could say, like, I felt like this in the movies was depicted well. Um at least from like an overarching visual perspective, like, okay, it was bards, people from the town. It was, the elves against the dwarves, in, the however many dwarves, for the company inside, the keep and everything. It's like, yeah, I feel like the movie did an okay job with this scene. Um let's see. And um yeah, and it's like they, exchange their titles, like, I am so and so. It's like, congratulations. Does it ever, I don't know if I missed it or it's described. I know we've touched on the whole, like, the not the gold sickness or whatever, but like where, he goes a little gray cray with the because of all the gold and everything. Is it ever like, does Bilbo, did I miss where Bilbo like said, Thorin's going a little like stir crazy with all the gold? Like, is that ever mentioned?
No, again, that's another one of those issues of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Like they mention the greed of the dwarves,
Yeah.
but it's nothing to the extent of like, oh, they have the dragon sickness. It's like, no, like it's just they're great.
Okay.
Like, because they've gone from being these vagabonds going from place to place, like plying like their skills, because they didn't have a home because they had lost Erebor, and now they have this mountain kingdom to themselves, and so they're very protective of that because they don't want to lose it, because they just got it back.
Oh, okay. So it's more on that line, whereas in the movies it was like Thorin being obsessed with keeping his gold, and like that's what it was.
Well, they're also all stingy and like miserly already. Like, that's a part of dwarves in Tolkien's world.
True. Let's
Yeah,
see.
wasn't there like even a mention of like how dwarves really work? Basically, they say at your service, but to an extent of what they can get out of it, almost.
Yeah, it's very much like to the letter of the contract. Like, while still being very honorable, they would, hold to the exact wording. They wouldn't like step out of stipulations. It's like, nope.
Yeah, because like that's like, the whole end of this chapter of 15 is just, obviously them talking with everything, and them like, it's like, okay, Thorin Thorin, I believe, is like, I declare the mountain besieged. Or no, who is it then? Was that Bard that says that? And Thorin, maybe it's Bard that says it. Well, either way, they're like, okay, the mountain's under siege now. It's like, oh, great, good job, guys. And let's see. Yeah, I love the line right at the end. The whole place still stinks of dragon. I'm like, well, he's been there for a little bit, Like, air out the place, crack a window. All right.
I imagine it's got to be hard to freaking get the stink of dragon off your gold.
Yeah. Especially because there's a lot of it. It's like, maybe you could get it off the
one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use turtle wax.
So
No, you need bleach for that.
So at the top of 16, making great time, guys. Top of 16, we see again, there's more days that pass, which is like, okay, time has transpired. We see what's his name? Thorin talking about the Arkenstone, and like, you know, this very impactful line of like, that stone of all the treasure I name unto myself, and I will be avenged on anyone who finds it and withholds it. And it, you know, it's like Bilbo's like, oh boy, like, what's gonna happen if he finds it in my pillow? And you know, it's like, well, Thorin is laying claim to something, yes, that's been around for a very long time before Bilbo even knew about it, but it's like he's acting like it hasn't been found yet, and he's like, I'm calling dibs whenever it is found, and it's like, yeah, but Bilbo already found it. Like, let's see.
In the case of finders versus keepers,
Yeah.
we find in the point of Bilbo.
Yep.
Now, see, when we get to this point right here where he found the Arkenstone, my wondering is, was it written in the contract that they're there to find the Arkenstone or just reclaim the mountain? So was Bilbo actually in the right to take and claim the Arkenstone as his own?
Again, it's part of the contract. He's allowed his share.
Yeah. Which is
True.
interesting because
And he was allowed to select his share.
Oh.
That's right.
And we have seen that before too, where like we've seen those lines in previous chapters where it's like, you know, oh, like, well, we're at the mountain, now what? Like, that wasn't really discussed beyond getting here. And so it's like, that's a good point, Raven, of like, okay, you know. Calder, were you saying something? I think you said something. Maybe. Nope. Okay. Let's see. I felt like this, like, I don't know, the whole like Bilbo leaving, like to go obviously to the elves and everything. I'm trying to see, yeah, it's like, I'm curious what, because we just see that night Bilbo made up his mind, period. It's like, okay. And I'm wondering, I'm like scanning backwards. Excuse me. Do we know if there was like why he was not pushed, but like why he was like, you know what? I am going to go to Bard and the elves and I'm going to give them the Arkenstone. Like, was he trying to like, you know, get ahead of the curve, so to speak, and, you know, try and make peace ahead of time since we know Thorin wasn't going to do anything, or other than, you know, hold fast kind of thing? Or does anybody know like what Bilbo's logic is?
My guess is he just kind of wanted it to end peacefully. Like, he didn't want a war. And I think at one point it kind of stresses that he's not very happy with all this warlike talk.
Which is funny because it's normally this complaint is, I wish I was back home in bed, but that doesn't come up at all within this discussion, which is interesting because that comes up everything up to this point.
Yeah, it's literally the last line of this chapter is a I feel like a nod to the whole sentiment of wanting to be home. But you're right, like there's no, man, I really wish to be home. You know what? I'm gonna go bring this to the elves and to Bard to, you know, accelerate that process. It's like, nope, like, I did like the whole like when he's invisible and he like missed his footing on a round stone and fell into the water and stuff, and it was like, that was no fish, there's a spy about. And it was just like, well, I mean, no, it's not a fish, like it's not a fish.
And then he immediately like scolds them into taking them to Bard.
Let's see.
He's like, you better get me warm, and then I'll talk to somebody. And I only got like 2 hours left.
Let's see. Really? Wait, I'm looking. Let's see. I see. You will take me along quick to a fire where I can dry, and then you will let me speak to your chiefs As quick as maybe. Yep, there it is. Yep. Yep. So it's like, quick, get me to a fire.
Which I really don't. I think that shows a lot of growth on his part too, because I don't see beginning of the Hobbit Bilbo doing that.
Yeah, because he kind of almost like put his foot down, which I'm almost wondering if during that whole like leadership section, you know, where he's like being the leader of the group and he kind of had to make decisions and like stand firm on things. I'm wondering if that's where some of this like more intense character development came from, like his more stern side, confident side, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, where is it? Oh yeah, here's the whole like, personally I'm tired of the whole affair. I wish I was back in the West in my own home where folk were more reasonable, but I have an interest in this matter. 1/14 share to be precise, according to a letter which fortunately I believe I have kept. He drew from a pocket in his old jacket, trembled and much folded. Yeah, it's like there's the you know, I'm assuming that's the contract letter. Oh,
I do see here where he does say, when he talks about the 14th sharing stuff, he does say, I wish I was back home in the West in my own home. So I retract my other statement. He does complain about not being in his house.
But I almost wish if this is less of a complaining statement and more just like a comparison. I mean, I guess it could be kind of like a complaining, but it almost comes across like, well,
it's not nearly as whiny as it is normally, that's for sure.
Right, yeah, because normally he's like, man, I want to be back in my warm bed with my second breakfast and my pipe and my tea and my this and my that and me, you know, and everything. And this is just like, I'd rather be back home where like matters like this like don't happen. Like we don't, you know, this whole, like you said, the war talk and everything. Like, no, doesn't really happen. Let's see. And then here's like at the bottom of that page, depending on where it is for you, like Bilbo tells him like that Dane is less than 2 days march off. It's like, okay, that's another like indication of time, indication of, you know, okay, we've got, well, us as the reader who's seen the trilogy of Hobbit movies, we know what is coming. And so it's like, oh, well, Dane's not set to arrive for another 2 more days. Okay, we got to sit around for 2 more days. Okay, got it. Let's see. Oh, here's an answer to my own statement. I never met such suspicious folk. I am merely trying to avoid trouble for all concerned. Yep. Let's see. Just like skimming over the last little bit since we're right here at the end of the chapter. Let's like my last big like touch point of this chapter and for this week's reading is like, I love that Gandalf just like appears right at the end. Because is he with them? Because in the
no, he's been gone. He's been dealing with some necromancer.
Right. That's what I thought. Whereas in the movie, like he's with Bard and the king, right? Like the Elf King, like he's with them, isn't he? During that like whole thing, because he sees Bilbo when he gets there and all sorts of stuff. Whereas like here, if I read this correctly, Gandalf just poof, there he is.
Yeah, it feels like he's almost hiding in the camp.
Yeah, but I mean, knowing, Tim, what you mentioned like a couple weeks back where, you know, spoiler, Gandalf is an angel. It's like equivalent to an angel, essentially. Is that it felt almost like Gandalf kind of like appeared, like very much like not materialized. Like he didn't like, you know, wave his magic wand and poof, like, you know, ninja smoke and he's appears or anything. but like it almost felt like what I picture in my head is like Bilbo heading back to the mountain. He's just like walking along, and then if this was like a movie, like a TV screen, what I would picture is like Bilbo is walking like center of the screen, and he's like walking towards you or away from you, whatever, doesn't matter. He's just walking in center screen, and then all of a sudden Gandalf from one side or the other, doesn't matter, just kind of like then walks onto screen, and it's just like, what does he say? What's the first line he says here? Well done, Mr. Baggins. Like I picture him like walking on as like, and like as he comes up next to Bilbo, he's like, well done, Mr. Baggins, he said, clapping Bilbo on the back. There is always more about you than anyone expects. And like that's kind of what I pictured in this scene, was just like Bilbo's making his way, and then just poof, Gandalf just like appears. But again, not in that like kind of what Yoren says, like not in the like abracadabra, like tap the hat 3 times and a bunny comes out, like very just like he's there when you need him kind of thing. He arrives precisely when he means to. And then I also liked here as well, like a little bit of Gandalf's, like, I guess you could say almost, you know, kind of similar to in the movies, again, because I haven't read the books, which is why we're doing this. But like, you know, where Gandalf's like, at first light on the 5th day at dawn, look to the east, like, you know, that like foreshadowing of stuff to come, but he doesn't tell you like what's gonna happen at first light on the 5th day. He's just like, hey, first light on the 5th day, be aware, something's going down. And similarly to this is like, you know, all in good time. Things are drawing towards the end now. Unless I am mistaken, there is an unpleasant time just in front of you, but keep your heart up. You may come through all right. There is news brewing that even the ravens have not heard. Good night. You know, and it was just like, okay, just drop that on me, why don't you? And then leave me alone. Okay, cool. Let's see. Yeah, and then right here at the end, like, as a matter of fact, he was dreaming of eggs and bacon.
Food again.
Hey, I'll on the topic of dreaming for 2 seconds, and we can go down this rabbit hole after we wrap up tonight. But I had a War of the Barons dream last night, and I didn't even go. But I think it was just because
what's it?
I had a War of the Barons dream last night, like the event that was this past weekend. I didn't even go, but just hearing everybody's like stories and seeing pictures, I guess like impacted my dreams enough that I had a dream about it, even though I did not attend. Anyways, so does anybody have any final thoughts on these 3 chapters? Anything? Nothing is an appropriate answer to.
Barreling towards an end.
I know, like I am blown away that all we have left is these little 3 chapters here at the end, which I know we've talked about this too, is that's like that the Battle of the 5 Armies happens in that little section of the book, which had to be dedicated to an entire freaking movie. Like, so yeah. But it's like we get, let me see here, page numbers wise. Yeah, page numbers wise, it's 272 to 246 for me. So it's like, it's 30 pages is going to be like the actual battle. If that.
Like I said a couple weeks back, temper your expectations.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying is like, we had to dedicate a whole movie to the whole fight and everything. And it's like, we've got less than 30 pages left in the book, and we still haven't had the battle yet. And we've got the return journey, because I saw one of the chapter titles. Like,
yep.
But yeah. Okay. So this coming week for reading, we will read the final 3 chapters. And then next Monday, we will have our final group meeting for The Hobbit. And then once we do that, we can discuss plans for the Fellowship of the Ring. If everybody's down to keep the hype train going on Lord of the Rings, because I've really enjoyed this. Anyways. Okay, well, thank you guys. This was awesome discussion as per usual. So if there's no final thoughts, I'm going to go wrap up. But thank you all for coming. Raven, thanks for coming to your first book club meeting.
I know that was actually my first one ever,
Hey,
and it was actually pretty cool.
Did you have fun?
Oh yeah, we're getting our nerd on talking about Lord of the Rings.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, I'm
And
gonna
I'm
go.
already reading.
One thought.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think this is important.
Yeah.
Never trust an elf.
Excellent, excellent.
Definitely.
Yes. All right, I'm gonna go wrap things up on my end. But you guys have a fantastic evening, and we will touch. I know that we'll all talk in the Discord before then, but I will see you guys in a week for our final Hobbit book club meeting.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Alrighty, guys. So that was our second to last Hobbit book club meeting, chapters 14 to 16. Man, I've really enjoyed this, and like the discussion is always just absolutely incredible, and I love it. Hearing everybody's perspectives on just like learning all the I love it. I'm excited about next week. I'm blown away that we are one book club meeting away from finishing The Hobbit, which to me is crazy because, again, I'd never read these books before. So even though this might have been a slow pace for some people, I'm really thankful that we took the time to read through it. And, at 28 years old, I'm finally reading these books. I will say, though, for my personal thoughts, that, I think if I ever have kids, I am going to require that the way for them to watch the movies is they have to read the books first. Because I will say that I definitely have a lot of visuals of the movies in my head while reading this, which I think takes away a little bit. Ooh, that got loud. Sorry. I believe that takes away a little bit from kind of the whimsy of the book and the writing of Tolkien, because I've seen the movies so many times. So yeah, but anywho, thank you guys for being here. And if you guys saw me drinking out of this mug, this is a Donovan pottery mug. It's one of my favorites. The link for it will be in the description of the video, and you guys can use code ROSE10 at checkout for 10% off your order. I would highly recommend. These are like some of the only mugs I drink out of. Would highly recommend. Oop, he's a dear friend, fellow Hearthguard, small business, all that good jazz. So definitely go check out his stuff. Tons of nerdy mugs. So without further ado, I will see you guys in a week for our book club meeting. And thanks for watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to drop that subscribe button. I can't talk. I would greatly appreciate it. Like that video, and comment whether or not you have read The Hobbit. And yeah, I will see you guys next week for that. I love this. It's been so much fun. See you guys next week.